right, here's what the people want to know. The people. Peter, why this is just for you, I think we can all talk about it. What explains Donald Trump's appeal to young men? I saw today that the gender gap, I think, is the widest. I mean, it's very predictable. I mean, the women are much more for Kamala, and the men are much more for Trump, generally.
In this Real Time with Bill Maher segment, John McWhorter and Peter Hamby dive into the pressing cultural and political issues shaping the 2024 election as it comes to a close. As they discuss the impact of Donald Trump's appeal to young men and the challenges Kamala Harris faces in rallying male voters, they underscore the significant role that cultural identity and media influence play in shaping political preferences. Their engaging conversation highlights broader themes of polarization in American politics, particularly among younger demographics, where the political divide between men and women is becoming increasingly pronounced. By exploring youth voting trends and shifting party allegiances, McWhorter and Hamby provide insight into the complex dynamics driving the electoral landscape and the cultural forces at work. Tune in for this fascinating conversation.
All right, here's what the people want to know. The people. Peter, why this is just for you, I think we can all talk about it. What explains Donald Trump's appeal to young men? I saw today that the gender gap, I think, is the widest. I mean, it's very predictable. I mean, the women are much more for Kamala, and the men are much more for Trump, generally.
But it's not predictable if you look at past elections where voters under 30, generally men and women, went for Democrats. This is remarkable. I think to explain it...
Wait, you're talking about under 30?
Yeah, the under 30
What's going
gender
on
gap is very different than past elections.
Bigger?
Much bigger. So in 2020, young men and young women voted for Joe Biden at roughly the same rate. Over the last 4 years, and now with Kamala Harris, young women are voting for Kamala Harris at that same level, if not more. Kamala Harris has barely moved the needle with young men. They have gone more toward Trump. There's a lot of reasons for that. I think Trump has exploited culture war stuff. He appears on hyper-masculine podcasts, and he just seems like a fun bro who's not going to ban your zins, you know?
One of the key discussions in the segment revolves around Donald Trump's growing appeal to young men, which Peter Hamby highlights as a significant factor in the shifting political landscape. A noticeable gender gap has emerged, particularly among voters under 30, with young men increasingly gravitating towards Trump while young women continue to favor Kamala Harris. This trend marks a departure from previous elections where young voters, as a whole, leaned heavily Democratic. Hamby attributes Trump's success with young men to his effective exploitation of culture war issues and his carefully crafted hyper-masculine image. Through appearances on popular media platforms, Trump has managed to present himself as a relatable figure to young men, reinforcing his appeal as someone who champions their concerns and lifestyle. This cultural connection, more than policy, seems to be driving their support. That's a really big deal for Kamala Harris. Keep up the video.
This could actually be, this is a real issue for Kamala Harris, though. Like, this could be fatal for her campaign. So if Democrats need to win 60% of the youth vote to win the White House. Hillary came up short. Obama did it. Biden did it. Kamala Harris is right now at like 55% of the youth vote. If she doesn't get to 60, she could lose the election. And it's because young men, Gen Z men, are breaking to Trump.
They're not going to vote.
Yeah, but...
I mean, I agree they like him better, but they're the ones who are going to stay home.
And you know that he's the towel-snapping camp counselor. You could call him having a good sense of humor. But the thing is, Joe Biden was such an underwhelming prospect that I think it made an awful lot of young men, including of color, think that Trump would be the better deal. I imagine a lot of them would find, you know, the exuberance and the promise and the joy of Kamala to be something more exciting. And so I would hope that that might help tip some of this, but would have to really, decisively tip it.
Okay.
The implications for Kamala Harris are significant. The Democrats rely heavily on the youth vote to secure election victories, and if Harris fails to win over young men, it could weaken the party's overall support base. Without closing this gender gap, Harris and the Democrats risk losing the crucial youth vote needed to secure the presidency, a challenge that could prove detrimental to their campaign. This divide is particularly problematic given that a significant portion of the youth vote is critical for a Democratic victory. Bill Maher adds an additional layer of skepticism, suggesting that even though young men may favor Trump, their turnout at the polls could be lower. However, this uncertainty remains a potential liability, as relying on non-turnout alone may not be enough to close the gap and secure the necessary votes for Harris and the Democratic Party.
What does the panel think of Trump promising free IVF? Yes, in vitro fertilization treatments, and criticizing Florida's 6-week abortion ban. Well, it's because it's musical chairs season. It's where the music starts again, and suddenly Kamala's for fracking, and he loves abortion now. You know, it's like that. When the music stops, pick an issue.
And he's running scared, and you know he was never pro-life in the first place, and so all of this is fairly predictable. But it shows his desperation.
Yeah, that's his biggest vulnerability among any issue is abortion rights and women's health care. So he's saying whatever he needs to say. But if he gets into office to fund free IVF for everyone in the country, like he's going to have to get Republicans in Congress on board for that and Republicans in the Senate. I don't think like those are much more rank and file, like dogmatic social conservatives than Donald Trump.
Remind me.
In this regard, Bill Maher and his guests describe this as part of a broader pattern of Trump saying whatever he needs to in order to survive politically, especially during election cycle. His past inconsistencies or opposition to conservative positions, such as pro-life policies, highlight his inconsistent commitment to some Republican dogmas, suggesting that his actions are more about winning than holding firm to ideological belief. This unpredictability is seen as a political tactic, although the panel doubts that he can actually get Republican legislatures to support such policies. Before continuing the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to watch other interesting videos.
Okay, do you think, for a panel, college campuses have an anti-Semitism problem? Oh, I'll file this under duh.
I was going to say next.
Yes, they do.
Well,
They do.
and I would say they have an ignorance problem, not knowing things, and that leads to lots of other sub-problems like anti-Semitism.
Oh yeah, I mean, there can be no doubt that the sorts of things that Jewish students are supposed to put up with every day, based on those protests and so much more.
Bill Maher and John McWhorter quickly agree that anti-Semitism is a problem on college campuses. McWhorter elaborates that this stems from broader ignorance among students. They points out the double standard where similar attacks on other minority groups, such as black students, would be met with immediate outrage, but Jewish students are often left to tolerate such behavior. This reflects a concerning cultural bias, with McWhorter emphasizing the need for more informed discourse and stronger responses to anti-Semitism in educational settings. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next videos.